I am doing everything that I possibly can to just wipe my brain out from what happened on Monday.
Well, talking about barbecue helps, but I know this thing, Washington get back on the right track going up against the team they have some success with. They beat them in 2021, 17-15.
It's time to reset, but more importantly, time to build on a good 30 minutes and fix everything that went bad in the last 30 minutes.
Hail to the Commanders! It's the Commanders Squad. Everything Washington Commanders every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the heart of the nation's capital. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Rally the burgundy and gold. The Commanders Squad Show starts now.
Anthony Armstrong, David Harrison, Nick Ashooh. We are brought to you by Game Time. Today's episode not only brought to you by Game Time, but you can download the Game Time app and create an account and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. We've had a couple of days to sit, to breathe. I use the analogy of taking a shop vac to this Commanders season, and I feel like it's still certainly worth it. And who knows what's going to happen after this game when the trade deadline comes up. We will get to that in this show looking forward, but there's a game first that comes up Sunday night against a really good Seattle team that runs the ball well, that's well coached, and has a quarterback that's kind of found a second good home after he just had a great home before. There's a lot that Washington's certainly going to have to pay attention to in this game. We're going to look ahead to all of that. Of course, the most important things right now is we have only certain amounts of information in this, and David is the guy that I'd probably lean on with this first, because you know how Wednesdays are. As we're doing this show live, some people are listening or watching maybe later in the week, but Terry McLaurin, Jayden Daniels, two of the many injuries that this team has to deal with. And again, I'll say it over and over and over again. There's a limit to how much next man up mentality works when you start losing what feels like your entire roster, which has kind of become the injury bug for the Commanders. Jayden Daniels, though, and Terry McLaurin, man, those are the two names I think that everybody's keeping an eye on the most.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now the Commanders are like 6th or 7th in the league in the amount of players they've used throughout the season. And a lot of the teams that are ahead of them are teams that just really like to diversify their packages and their looks. They're doing it by design, not because of requirements. So Dan Quinn always talks about that 70-man roster, and man, they have had to lean on that 70-man roster this year. The good news is we are scheduled to hear from Jayden Daniels Wednesday evening after practice, a late practice on Wednesday, because of the game on Sunday. I think DQ bringing in everybody just a little bit later. So we are scheduled to hear from Jayden, and that's good news, Anthony, because everybody knows like the projected starting quarterback is the guy you talk to on Wednesday. It doesn't mean he's going to play, but it's certainly better. And I love Marcus, but it's certainly better than having Marcus Mariota at the mic Wednesday evening.
Man, if you can get Jayden Daniels to say he's going to play, I think that's going to make a lot of people more confident going into this matchup on Sunday. I mean, you're going to need Jayden to get out there, especially if you're going to get Terry and you're going to have Debo really maximize what this offense can be. I mean, they got good corners over there for Seattle. Tariq Woolen, I just saw he took off the T part, so it's just Reek Woolen, R-I-Q. Respect to that. Give Reek Woolen and then Witherspoon. They got skills. There's some talented players. So, you want to have your best lineup out there, especially with this matchup. And you're going to need all hands on deck. I mean, with the defensive line that the Seahawks have, it's going to cause some troubles for this offense, and it's best to have everybody available, the best available, get them out there, Nick, and let them go out there and show what they can do. Because, man, Seahawks got a tough squad, and you really got to make sure you have everybody ready to roll.
I mean, this is sort of that stretch we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks, right? The stretch that's really going to be a test of this team. The thing is, if you don't have – again, like the NFL, you're going to have injuries. It's how it works. So it's, how you handle those. But like I've said, there are limits to that where it's like we can't even get a true gauge of, I think, a lot of parts of this team. I'd probably lean more offensively than defensively, because I think everybody coming into the season felt a lot more confident about the offense and their ceiling versus where the defense is. But, after Seattle, it's the Lions, and it's the Dolphins in Madrid and the Broncos and the Vikings. And then that backloaded divisional stretch at the end of the regular season, which, by the way, I love that the NFL has done that. It makes for an exciting end of the season, but it also makes you go, oh my God, like this is a gauntlet, even because division games are their own animal. But even just looking at this game against Seattle coming up, I mean, if you have Jayden Daniels, you've got your franchise quarterback. You've got your guy out there that can make plays with his legs to an even higher degree than where Marcus Mariota can. We know what the ceiling is with this offense, but he does need guys around him that can also make plays. And if Debo's banged up, we haven't even mentioned yet, but he's been dealing with that heel injury and really hasn't looked right since the Bears game. And Terry McLaurin going from one injury to another in the quad, and we got to watch that. And you start going down this depth chart, like they're going to have to figure something out in terms of, okay, who can we incorporate in this offense that we can count on if Debo and Terry are even out there and banged up, David. And I think that's one of the things where we've talked a lot about this backfield. And it's one thing, they were down against Kansas City, so you just can't run the ball as much. I understand the game plan was certainly altered there, but they talk about the versatility that they wanted on this offense, and we've seen the flashes of it. It really now comes down to, like, your season may be on the line against Seattle and against the Lions just over the next couple of weeks, just given where your record is sitting right now, where they're just going to have to figure it out. It's whoever the hell can get out there and contribute to this offense. That's what we're going to need, because the defense pretty much is what it is, but the ceiling is much higher for this offense.
Yeah, I mean, I think the offense is what it is from a functional standpoint. Like, the Cliff Kingsbury got Jeremy McNichols a little bit more involved. Chris Rodriguez got a carry earlier in the game than I think a lot of people expected, though we didn't see pretty much anything of him as a ball carrier after that. So that I suppose you could still tap into an unused resource there. But I think overall the offense is kind of what it is. And for the most part, until Monday night, the offense really has not been the problem. Certainly not perfect by any means, but this is really the first game this year where the defense could theoretically walk into the locker room after the game and look at the offense and say, what the heck, buddies? Like, where's the complimentary football? But I'm sure they didn't do that, because if they did, any of the offensive players would look at the previous 7 weeks and say, okay, dude, let's talk about these other games. You know what I mean? And certainly that's not going to benefit anybody anyway. Anthony, you can speak on that more clearly. But I think the key, the thing that is really important is health, right? I mean, that's a no duh. But especially with this team, like, this team is just different with Jayden Daniels on the field. And I'm telling you, I can't quantify this. I can't prove it, right? It's a quantum leap type of situation. But I feel like this team has 17 points going into the half minimum on Monday night versus 7 if Jayden is out there. If number 5 is out there instead of number 8, and 17-7 at the half is obviously way better than 7-7 at the half. And potentially that game goes a lot differently in a 17-7 game than a 7-7 game. But that's really, I mean, that's the crux of this entire season, Anthony. Like if 5 is healthy, even with everything else, even with Dietrich, Austin, Terry, Noah, if 5 is healthy for 8 games right now, I find it hard to believe that this team is not at least 5-3 versus 3-5.
You'd like to think they would find a way to get an extra victory or two when you have a player with his caliber, Jayden Daniels on the field. One thing I was looking at, and the reason why his presence is that much more important and what they want to do with this running game, the last 3 games, this Seattle defense, they have allowed 56, 59, and 56 yards on the ground running. That is it. Okay, against their last 3 opponents. That was Tampa Bay, Jacksonville, and Houston. Make with it what you want to make. They gave up 38 points against Tampa Bay because Baker's been playing out of his mind. But that's the point of having Jayden Daniels on the field, especially if you're going to have your other receivers are going to have to find some sort of excitement. I'm calling for them to, go grab that extra spice out of the back of the pantry. Put a little Emeril Lagasse on the offense. You're going to have to create some sort of a spark. Jayden's the guy to do it. 56 yards, 50 yards rushing. If they do that going on Sunday, I don't think they're going to have a chance of winning. I don't think that you can, go out there with this offense with that type of a mentality. So if they can get the running yards upwards closer to 100, then Seattle's only given up 100 yards once this season. That was week 1 against San Francisco, Nick, where Jayden Daniels on the field. They can make them one-dimensional passing. That makes it difficult. So I need to see the run game show up to support Jayden Daniels.
Yeah, I mean, as much as Marcus Mariota can step in and they can kind of keep the offense similar in some capacity to what it would be with Jayden Daniels, the reality is Jayden Daniels elevates this team in a healthy 8 games. I think that's a great point, David. I'm with you. Like this is, we're looking at a 4-4, 5-3 team, and we are right now at the halfway mark, essentially, of the NFL season with 17 games. I mean, at halftime Sunday night will technically, I guess, be the halfway point at this point. But like when we look at this team now and where they are, like it's really hard to evaluate some things because we haven't seen a collection of certain players out on the field enough for them. The defense, I feel like there's at least a little bit more because there's simple fundamentals that they're just not addressing. They're not tackling well enough. They're not like they're getting beat in coverage. Those are basic fundamentals that are just not clicking for them. From the offensive side of the football, though, it's where I have a harder time kind of evaluating what this team is with Noah Brown being out all season, Debo missing a little bit of time, Jayden missing a ton of time, barely any Terry McLaurin on the field. And, Anthony, for you, just from, a receiver's perspective here, like, my concern heading into this year was just that they weren't having a lot of time in camp with everybody together, with Terry McLaurin's contract situation being a part of it. But then you add in all these injuries on top of it. I feel like this offense as a whole has just been kind of behind the entire season trying to play catch up. Problem is you can't catch up if guys aren't getting back out there and healthy again.
Man, you do not have any continuity. I mean, I remember just seeing the difference between one starting quarterback and then the backup. Just the way that they throw the ball is different. The way that they process the plays are different. The play call doesn't change, but the person behind the trigger, essentially, the person who's driving the wheel, driving the car, they can determine where the football goes. I mean, you've seen look at Jaxon Dart and Lil John Humphreys over there in New York. That first game, he had found a wide receiver one because they had been getting all the work on scout team and things like that. So whenever you go from Jayden to Marcus's mindset is different. He has a different relationship with players, and it's hard to have that continuity. And this is one of those years where, depending on what side of Commanders Nation Twitter you go on, part of it is like AP is not a good GM and he's no good and get him out of here and he's made all these bad selections. And then on the flip side, it's like all of the people that he brought in, they're not able to get on the field together. I can't even imagine the amount of, you said 7th that they've had, how many different players they've used. I couldn't imagine what the lineups have been. I don't think there's been one lineup where it's been exactly the same across 11 people on offense or on the defensive side of the ball. That makes it really difficult to gauge where a team is at. But there's still some good you can get out of it. You can still gauge the other players, but you got to have 5 on there to really help lift this thing up. But if you don't have, Terry's been hurt, Debo's been off and on, it's really tough to just really truly rank how this team has been performing this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the key there, right? So the Washington Commanders are number 1 in the NFL right now with unique lineups. They've had 247 unique lineups. That is 20 more unique lineups than the second most team, which is the Los Angeles Chargers. So in 8 games, that's a lot. That's a very, very big difference. Defensively, they've had 207, which isn't number 1, but it's definitely up there. And part of the reason they haven't had 207 is because they lost Dietrich Wise in the beginning of the season. So there was your first unique defensive lineup, and so there's your good sign of why they're not. They lost an impactful player really early. That's the reason they don't rank so high. So I mean, it is what it is, guys. I mean, and some of these lineups, like the lineup they have, or the personnel grouping, I should say, that they've used the most, 19 plays they've used the one personnel grouping the most, and it includes Austin Eckler. So that kind of just shows you how many different personnel groupings they've had to put out there, how many different lineups they've had to put out there. Yeah, it's hard to find that consistency, right? This thing it's not, it's 11 individual guys doing 11 individual jobs, but it's 11 individual guys doing one organizational mission, right? And we talk about like the defense is 11 dudes operating as one. That's incredibly impactful. The offensive line specifically, I mean, I remember, and I know his time didn't work out so well with Washington, but like I got a little bit of a, crash course from Juan Castillo, the former, Commanders offensive line coach, one offseason, one training camp, and really just kind of going through like the choreography of an offensive line. You know what I mean? And not having Sam Cosmi in there, then bringing him in there, going from Brandon Coleman to Chris Paul, Monday night going from Laramie Tunsil to Brandon Coleman. Like those things matter. Those things change the tone and the tempo of the offense. So the scheme might look the same. But the dance and the rhythm really is different. The last thing I'll say about that is I saw a comment, and this is one comment, right? So I don't want to get crazy, but like this is what the fans all think. But like I saw one comment Monday night, and I completely ignored it, but it's been kind of sitting in my brain, obviously. That watching the Commanders against Kansas City reminded them of Eric Bieniemy's offense. Guys, the Commanders ended up losing by 3 possessions. Marcus Mariota threw the ball 30 times total, and overall, I think it was like 54% pass to run ratio, right? So like even in a game where you lost by 3 possessions, Cliff, like that might have been the most balanced I have ever seen Cliff Kingsbury coach this offense. So I understand the PTSD and all that stuff, but like Eric Bieniemy's not here, Ron Rivera's not here, Dan Snyder's not here, Shanahan's not here. Like it's got to stop.
Quit bringing it up.
Yeah, I lost my mind on Sunday after that. I saw a bunch of that, and I was just like, guys, we need to remember, like, where this team came from, okay? Like, and if anybody that's been traumatized much as anybody, Anthony, he was there for part of the Dan Snyder era. He knows stuff he probably doesn't even want to say on the air. We've all probably got stories that were like, I'll probably keep that off the air. I know I've been told a few things over the years, and I'm not even a reporter covering the team. That being said, I think, and I don't want to dwell on the injuries too much here, but I at least want to kind of cap this off before we move on here. When a team deals with injuries the way that this Commanders team has, I know that it's the easy cliche to say, well, next man up. And in some ways, yes, that does exist, but it's also a testament to a team's depth. And this team is still in the middle of a rebuild, which was forgotten by a lot of people because of the success they had last year. Again, nobody's going to take away the 12 wins in the NFC Championship, but in some ways, it raised the expectations to such an unrealistic level in today's NFL. Listen, the NFL, these guys are all pros. These guys are all good in their, at some level, to where the NFL, it's so damn hard to repeat a 12-win season on a team that's completely established and ready to go and has their foundation. For a team that wildly exceeded expectations, I mean, we're talking doubling their preseason win total. For them now to be in this spot here and deal with the injuries they've dealt with starters, it shows you that they are still rebuilding because the depth is just not there. The talent in the drop-off on the depth chart alone is just not at the point where you can survive and really sustain levels of success that, honestly, even the 49ers have at the beginning of the season. I mean, we look at the 49ers start to this year with all the injuries right off the bat. That shows you that's a more established team. They've dealt with injuries for a couple of seasons now. But, I mean, even look at backup quarterback and the way Mac Jones has played in that offense. It takes time to establish a quality level of starting caliber talent on your roster and on your depth chart, let alone the guys that are the next guy up, whether it's young, undrafted guys that you find or free agents that are getting a better opportunity, practice squad or whatever the case is. They haven't gotten to that point yet, and that's part of the reason why it affects a lot more of what they're dealing with now. It doesn't mean that missed tackles are their own thing defensively. I don't want to hear anybody say, well, fire this guy and fire. No, we're not talking about that. I'm talking about the actual fact that they don't have the depth and the talent down the depth chart to sustain the level of injuries that they've had that some more established teams have had. That's it. We can move on from the injuries now. I think people overlook that and take it as one blanket statement of like, well, it's the NFL and you got to be tough and play. Okay, but you also have to have talent that's going to be there to help fill in those gaps, and they don't have enough of that yet. Adam Peters is still going to build this team the slow way, the way that's sustainable long-term. I would much rather have this team be the Kansas City Chiefs, where every year we're saying you don't count them out no matter what the situation is, than them being a firework where they go all in for 2 years and they have to break the whole thing down. We've done enough of that. I've seen enough of that. Everybody's seen enough of that win now mentality versus win for the long term. That's all I want to see. All right. We're going to look at some of this.
Real quick, Nick.
Yeah, go ahead.
But look at the Chiefs. The Chiefs are a great example. They lost Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy, and they had a losing record, right? Like those aren't even like, you want to stack up like which team lost more between the Chiefs and the Commanders. The Chiefs, like it's hard to have depth in this league, and like you said, like this team is rebuilding as it is, let alone establishing long-term depth. Like I think it's a very valid point, but I think the Chiefs are actually a prime example of that, because you look at what they were doing and how they were struggling, just losing those two players before they got them back.
Now, and that is the good point, but the one thing I will say is they've gotten real cocky when it comes to thinking they can plug in any receiver and that it's going to work. So there was no depth there to begin with. Some of it was like, we don't want to pay these guys. And it's like, well, you do have Patrick Mahomes, so I get it. But then at the same time, I've learned, as a lot of us have, you just don't bet against the Chiefs. You don't count the Chiefs out because they just find these damn ways to win. Also, when the refs throw flags and help them, that's a whole other conversation for another day. We're moving on from that. We could talk about Texas barbecue and Kansas City barbecue if you want, Anthony, but we could also just not troll if you. We're moving on from Kansas City. We're moving on from that. We're looking ahead to Seattle. And also, too, on top of that, if this team does need to make some moves, what could those potential moves be with the trade deadline coming a couple of days after that Seattle game? We'll look at that. Plus, what happens, what our predictions are Sunday night against the Seahawks. All that coming up here on Commanders Squad. And Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else. From footwork to breath work, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings this same intention to how we craft every model. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to the available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but. From smooth handling to intuitive controls, with all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, they sweat every detail, because when you make every moment count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, guys. So I know we still have obviously a game coming up against Seattle, but there are a lot of things that are up in the air when it comes to injury. So I think it's hard to necessarily gauge everything that's going to happen. And as we've kind of learned, throughout the season with some of the big names like a Jayden Daniels and like a Terry McLaurin, we don't know until Friday, maybe even later, what the injury statuses for some of these guys are. I know we've seen some good, at least like hints of good news with Jayden Daniels. David, you brought it up beginning of the show. Like, he's going to talk Wednesday evening, which is usually a good sign for the starting quarterback for that week. But I do at least want to look at this, because we'll have this show and then we'll have whatever happens Sunday night, where we kind of have an idea of, okay, like, this is it. Now, what are the decisions that are going to be made? They may do nothing when it comes to that Tuesday, 4 p.m. Eastern trade deadline. The NFL trade deadline over the years has gotten a little bit more, I think, active. It's not the NBA, it's not Major League Baseball, but it's certainly getting there. I kind of want to start with you, David, because you're within the building, and I know there's some stuff maybe you can't. I'm not going to put you on the spot, but what I am at least going to say is, do you see, what does your gut tell you maybe in terms of what this team could end up doing in terms of moves, whether it's buy, whether it's sell, whatever the case is at the deadline? Could the game Sunday night dictate some of that? Because there's a big difference between 4-5 and 3-6 in an NFL season.
Yeah, well, and there's a big difference between 5-6 and 6-5 going into the bye week, right? I think that's even part of the bigger picture, right? With the bye week coming up in a few weeks and the trade deadline coming up before that, if they lose to the Seattle Seahawks, then the best you can do is 5-6, and that's a situation. If you beat the Seahawks, beat the Lions, beat the Dolphins, and you're 6-5 going into the break, you got those 4 divisional games. The Vikings look beatable. Broncos are going to be tough, but any given Sunday, all that crap. It's just a different environment, right? 6-5, 5-6, totally different, even though it's only a 1-game separation. So I think that it matters. I just don't know. Like, I know there are some people who want this team to become sellers, and they might sell some pieces as far as like trading guys away. Noah Igbenogany being a healthy scratch for the first time this year is interesting. They tried to move him before the initial roster cuts were made, before the initial 53-man roster was decided. There's been players moved off the active roster since then, and he hasn't been, one of them removed. So it's been kind of interesting that he's even still around. But a lot of us kind of looked at that and were like, okay, are they maybe trying to keep him healthy to potentially move him? But I mean, as far as like selling, like if it's, Facebook Marketplace is kind of like a best offer, right? And that's not, I'm a big fan of Noah, but it's just, he's the guy who hasn't played all year substantially. So like, what are you really going to get for him at this stage is kind of the question. There's other guys like Daron Payne, obviously all offseason was a big trade, target conversation, and he's essentially in a contract year because there's no guaranteed money on his contract next year, which means 1, he's probably going to want a new deal, some sort of restructure, so he has some guarantees. 2, if the team decides to move on from him, well, if you look like you're going to go 5-6, but going into the break and this thing isn't getting fixed, if you're AP, do you go ahead and move him for, I don't know what you would get at this point, to be honest. If you send him to a contender, maybe a 4th round pick, which is really a 5th because they're a contender, right? So it's going to be at the end of the 4th round. Things like that. But at the same time, like, if you're AP and Dan Quinn, like, do you really want, I mean, if you trade a guy like Daron Payne, like if you lose to Seattle and then Monday, Tuesday, Daron Payne is traded to, I don't know, the San Francisco 49ers who are trying to win their division, or the Los Angeles Rams, something like that. What is that? What's the message, Anthony? Like, what's the message there? And is that a message that if you're AP and DQ, you want to send before Thanksgiving?
Man, I tell you, in the players' sense, in the locker room, whenever you're seeing the moves happening, it kind of sends a little unease in there. I mean, I know the ultimate mission is to go out there and get W's, but if they're starting to send a lot of people off, then you got to wonder what the message is from the coach. You know what I mean? Like, if you're selling people away, it tells me that you're saying, hey, we're going to kind of punt on this season. But the messaging from the coach is going to be, hey, go out there and get a W and then fight and da-da-da. And it's just like, but you took away some of our best people. So if you see people getting, I don't say sold off, but shipped off, then hey, now it's like, look, I really got to take advantage of my opportunities because you are playing for film. You're playing for tape. Yeah, you're still trying to get W's, but you're still trying to put good stuff on tape. You have to learn real quickly to eliminate some of those personal relationships. You can still be friends and have cell phone numbers and text and chop it up, but the guy lined up next to you, obviously you've seen with injuries, he may not be there, but when the business part of this thing shows up and they had to start making trades, and if you're a part of the trade, hey, it's part of the game. But the trade part's always something that's always been uneasy for me. So I know that players are paying attention to it. But what I would like to see is like whatever they're doing, I've leaned on trusting AP and the fact that he's making a decision that's going to be smart for the team. Whatever decision you make, I don't think it's really going to affect the season. Now, there's nothing that's going to really affect the way the year has been going unless you're getting everybody bionic body parts. That's not happening. And they got the robots at Tesla, but I don't think they've approved them for NFL use yet. We barely got Hawkeye technology to figure out the spot of football. Zach Ertz should have had the first down, but 5 inches, whatever. I think that you're going to have to think about something for the future, avoiding other contracts that you're going to potentially have to pay, getting younger at a few positions if you were to go out there and make a trade for something.
Well, Anthony, you know my theory. I don't know if I've talked about it on this show, but a robot football league is coming one day. We are definitely getting that. Did you see that robot now that does your laundry they've been putting everywhere? I'm just saying.
I didn't see that one.
Your laundry,
Let me see that one.
Yep. Yeah. I think it's called I don't remember what it's called now, but
does it
there's
fold and put it back too?
Yes, it does. Shit. Yes, it does. Costs about $20,000. So if you're in, you get one and me. So and listen, it's there. There's the bionic arms might be what this team needs at this point. You bring up a really good point though, because I think when we look at these points in a season where it's like, okay, where is the team going to pivot their mindset? Is the team going to, go all in? Are they going to buy? Are they going to sell? The human element is a massive part of this, and it gets forgotten a lot. It's like, these are actually guys with families in locker rooms and worried about their futures and where they're going to be. And then once it even passes, it's like, okay, what's the mindset of the team, depending on what the mindset of the front office has been. And then to say like, I'll give you an example. It's like maybe shutting down a sports network and telling everybody they have to work to the end of the year, but everybody knows they're no longer going to be there. How are you going to get everybody to be business as usual? People in any place are going to sit there around and go, well, how are we supposed to buy into your fake message, knowing that your actions speak differently than, what your words actually are telling us? The Commanders right now sit at 3-5. Okay. So you're looking at, with the 49ers at 5-3, they're the 7th seed in the NFC right now, if we were to look at it that way. Commanders are 3 games back in the division. They're 2 games back of the last wild card spot. So obviously the season is still very much standing wise in the mix. But what happens then if they win against Seattle and you put them at 4-5 and there's a couple of key losses, we're looking at some teams like the Vikings and the Falcons, and hell, even the Panthers right now are sitting at 4-4, but like they could fall off. So you've got to also take into account, if you're this front office, and say, all right, like, let's look at our schedule. Let's look at some of these other team schedules. You're kind of betting on yourself a little bit if you decide to go all in, which again is not a bad thing, because guys don't go out there on the field to say, we'd like to lose. Like that's not how this thing works, So you're in a spot here where you've got to kind of factor that in if you're the Commanders. But I think that's what makes this game against Seattle so important, because it is also the mental side of it moving forward. But, at the same time, I think you're also looking at it and going, okay, guys are going to be out there no matter what. And it's going to matter for them, David. And I think that even if there are certain players traded or anything happens against Seattle on Sunday, it's not like you're not going to have other guys looking at this as maybe a potential opportunity, where in turn they could also say, all right, like, this is my chance now. And the team finds somebody that gets a bigger role, and you realize, oh, he actually could be part of our future, and we weren't necessarily thinking that at the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, it brings me back to the offseason, and the business side of football and the football side of football. And like when Terry was going through all of his stuff, and, we were all asking Dan Quinn, like, hey, what are you saying to Terry? What are you saying to the players and all that stuff? And DQ was just very deliberate in making sure that his conversations with Terry were not contract related, right? Like, that's not Dan's lane. That's not his responsibility. That's not his part of it. And as a coach, you also don't want Terry, when the day comes that he's back on the field, because that's coming, you don't want Terry looking at you and being like, you were part of the barricade between me and my contract, right? And all that stuff. And if you look at the sideline during the Monday night game, Terry makes that amazing touchdown grab which like two people in the world, Terry McLaurin and Anthony Armstrong, can make that catch. Nobody else makes that catch. And you go to the sideline, and Terry and DQ are just absolutely elated, celebrating together. You know what I mean? And that kind of just reinforces, like, Terry has been very vocal about, the grief and all that stuff. He's still to this day, even in the post-game locker room, he even talked about, lean on teammates. And he mentioned, like, even back in the preseason. And I'm like, this is like, that's an experience that has stuck with Terry, right? Like, and I'm not going to go as far to be like it's affecting him, but like, it's an experience that stuck with him. But the support that Dan Quinn also gave him as a player, as a man, all that stuff also stuck with him, because in that biggest moment, where, man, I'm back from the quad, prime time, we just tied the game against the Chiefs, that moment he found DQ and went and celebrated. That's important. And that's where, like, Anthony, you were just talking about, man, like, let's say this player gets sold, that player gets sold. I hate that phrase too, traded. Let's say these guys get traded, right? That's the tricky part of this organizational thing, is like, Dan has got to find a way to make that his staff and his role is separate from that, because that's the only way you're going to get the remaining guys to really buy into what you're trying to do, because this sport is way too violent. Like fans will talk about tanking. You're not putting 22 dudes on the field to lose on purpose. This game is way too violent for these guys to go out there and get their asses kicked the way they do for 60 minutes to lose on purpose. For what purpose? So that the front office can go bring in these younger guys to replace me. So I'm going to go get in a car wreck. I'm going to lose on purpose so you can fire me next year. Like, that's just not a reality. So DQ has to continue doing a good job, if that starts to happen, of separating himself in order to keep himself with the players.
I think he can send a message that even if the season is long gone, playoff wise, you can still send a message to get your guys to show up and play hard. You can still get your guys to show up and put good stuff on tape, because ultimately, hey, like I said before, this is going to all teams. Somebody else is going to sit there and look and be like, ooh, maybe we want to grab this guy if he becomes available in the offseason. So that's the conversation that you're having with players. But DQ, I think DQ will handle it the right way. He seems to have a good finger on the pulse of the team. And I mean, I've sat in, an office in that building and had the coach tell me one thing, and then how it's going to be this, and you're going to have a great season. And then at the end of training camp, he was sending me my walking papers. So I feel it. When you have that trust that's kind of broken, it can really set you back. So I'm glad that they're loving on Terry and making him feel welcome.
Yeah, listen, leadership matters, culture matters, and how you treat everybody in a leadership position absolutely matters and trickles down all the way from the bottom. And then again, it's good to see players, even after business decisions are made, having quality relationships with the head coach and things along those lines, which again it's a very different culture than we've certainly seen in the past there. So, all right, one of the biggest strengths for Seattle is one of the biggest weaknesses for Washington. What that is and what they need to do to overcome that Sunday night against Seattle next. And of course, the NFL season's back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in a stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle. You got the queues, you got the login screens, you got prices jumping at checkout, and you're looking there going, this is not what I signed up for. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives you the advantage. All of us, the fans, that's what you really want, right? Game Time's fast. It's easy. It's backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, which everybody can appreciate. The price you see is the price that you actually pay when it's all done. Every time I pull up the Game Time app, I see great ticket prices, especially for Commanders games. You're looking in there, and again, in today's economy, $100 for a ticket, that's pretty good. And you get those. And it's a great opportunity to be able to get the whole family out to a game and find some reasonable prices, not to mention the fact that they've got zone deals too, right? So you can pick the section, and the Game Time app kind of picks the seats. You save big. You can see what your seat looks like before you actually go there. All of these different things give them that advantage. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, the promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. So during Seattle's bye, guys, their inconsistency in the run game was certainly made to be, it was a focus for them. But we know that they've got multiple names back there that can run the football if you're Seattle. Zach Charbonnet, Kenneth Walker. I mean, these are two right there alone where you look and go, okay, They've got the talent that's there. The Seahawks run at the second highest rate in the league. The Commanders on the other side of things. This is where we get into the defense, and this is where it gets certainly ugly. 5.1 yards a carry over the last 3 games alone. We saw what, obviously, Kansas City was able to do against them on the ground. This, to me, is that besides, let's put all the injuries aside because at this point we're speculating the rest of the way. The one thing we know, Washington has struggled against the run, and Seattle loves to run the football. Even if they're not having a ton of success on the ground, they have the talent to do it, and they have the dedication to that, Anthony. And I think that's one of the big things to watch in this game, especially early. If Seattle establishes the run and has success on the ground, that's going to drag these games out. It's going to give longer possessions to Seattle. It's going to keep Washington's offense off the field. It's going to tire out that defense, and that's going to set up a whole level of problems, allowing Seattle to really dictate the pace of this game.
Nick, I think what it'll really end up doing is start unlocking Jaxon Smith-Njigba. The dude is an absolute baller. He's always open. We've always had to talk about the secondary, but man, if you're not stopping the run, it will get to be a long, drawn-out day. They're all coming up with a bye week, and they're traveling across the country, so you know they're going to want to play a physical game and kind of get back on track. It's been frustrating that what was the strong suit of the team of being able to have a good defensive front now has been, being a little porous. But hey, once again, find a way to steal the ball, steal a possession, right? What can you do against the other players? Because if they're going to be good at running the ball, fine. You got to take their best punch, right? You got to take their best punch and find a way to counter it. It's going to find a way to punch the ball out, create a turnover, maybe we turn those turnovers into touchdowns this week. But you're going up against a monster. You're going up against a hoss, and there ain't no way to stop that train other than trying to knock the ball out of somebody's hands, man. But yeah, it's going to be a tough battle. And I didn't realize they had been giving up 5.1 yards per carry.
Mm-hmm.
I know Joe Witt's not too happy about that.
Nobody's happy about that.
Yeah, I think what's even more concerning about that, not just obviously the numbers are concerning, but up until Monday night in week 8, pretty much all that was left and right. It was all left and right runs, which is why I wasn't really surprised to see the Chiefs come out at halftime really attacking the boundaries because, and I hate to admit this, but in the press box, a lot of times you'll hear me say the words no edge. There's no edge to this team. There's nothing. There's nobody setting the edge, unfortunately. And that's what Dietrich Wise was supposed to and did bring through, the 1.5 games that he was able to play. So they got to try to figure that out. But what really concerns me coming out of Monday night is how much the Chiefs were able to run through the middle, because up until week 8, that was really the one area where they could say, okay, at least up the middle, we're pretty stout. And I think a lot of that goes to, they went to a lot of odd fronts, which, overall they've had more success in odd fronts than they have in even fronts. But, that's a 2-gap system that requires, a little bit more from your D line to try to clog up some lanes. And obviously your second, third level guys have to be able to identify where it's going and close faster and all those things. And they just didn't do a great job of it. The good news is if that's what they're going to kind of go to heavy, they're going to practice it heavy, and there's the opportunity to get better. But that obviously is a major concern, because now it kind of looks like you just made one of your strengths a weakness, and as far as defending runs between the guards. But the other thing too, guys, really it just comes down to mentality in 2 ways for me, because that 15-yard penalty on Quan Martin is on 3rd down and ends up in the Kansas City Chiefs score. If you get rid of that, theoretically, right, they're getting a stop there. They're getting the ball back to the offense. The 15-yard penalty on Johnny Newton also comes in a situation where it's 2nd down, and now it's going to be 3rd down. You just got a sack, and instead it's a 1st down, new set of downs. They score on that drive. Marshawn Lattimore tries to pick up a fumble instead of doing what every coach has ever taught you from the beginning of football, fall on it. The Chiefs score on that drive. That's 3 plays, 3 drives. You have the opportunity as a defense to get off the field and not give up points. And because of mental mistakes, they give it away. One of the reasons Patrick Mahomes had so much more success in the second half than he did in the first half, eye discipline. And I use the word mesmerized, and that can be a little bit disrespectful, Anthony, because it kind of makes the defense sound like they were fans watching a quarterback. You know what I mean? But that's just kind of the best way for me to illustrate it is Patrick Mahomes starting to run around behind the line of scrimmage, and defenders, instead of keeping their coverage assignment, were watching Pat. And I get it that he is a dangerous player, but there's got to be a plan. And I believe there was a plan. Hey, when we're in this look, or whatever's happening here, and you try to prepare for everything possible, it's your job to go close on that quarterback. Revo, you're the one firing off from coverage. Go get Pat Mahomes. Everybody else, stay in coverage. Get sticky. Stay with your guy. But it just seemed like Revo, for example, was firing off, And then somebody in the second level was like, well, in case Pat gets away from him, let me be ready to close with him. No, bro, stay in coverage. There's one play specifically we talked about after the game. He's got 2 receivers wide open about five seconds after the snap, because that's exactly what happened is one dude's closing, the other 2 guys are just watching, and now they've got wide open receivers. If you're the Seattle Seahawks, if you can take advantage of that run game, what does that open up, guys? We already know this, right? Play action. What is a team with bad discipline and bad eye discipline going to be susceptible to? Play action. That is the absolute nightmare chemistry. But if you're the Seattle Seahawks, I don't know how you're not watching that tape going like, bro, this is exactly how we beat this team.
Man, you got stuff on tape. You got bad stuff on tape. You gotta know they're going to address. They're going to press that same button. You know, that's just how this league is. So, yeah, this I don't want to sit there and dwell and be like, man, this is going to be a rough bout. This feel like getting in the ring with Mike Tyson in his prime and anything like that. No, I think there's still opportunities. You know what I mean? I think they're still going to have chances to get things done. I mean, Sam Darnold's playing good football, but he's still Sam Darnold deep down inside, right? Deep down inside. So it's a challenge once again to the coaches and to the players. I think I said it before. Players can take some initiative and take some ownership on some of these things. When you start to see some tendencies, hey, you have a guy drop out. Hey, we don't need to rush 5 down here on the 10. We need to have more people in coverage. You know what I mean? Try to confuse them by faking a rush and dropping into coverage and doing some different things, playing some games back there. But then maybe this you don't trust to do it because you got a lot of young guys. Maybe, you know, so I don't know. There's obviously been some disconnect around how things have been operating on that back end, but in the secondary linebackers and beyond. But they're going to have to get it cleaned up because I think who's the tight end for Seattle? Is Fant back in, or is it somebody else now? Because the tight end position, they usually keep some good tight ends over there as well. So that's another one to pay attention to when you talk about matchups also, especially coming out of play action, somebody releasing late. See how Kelsey had a good game as well. So they're going to have to D up,
it's just
man.
A.J. Barner is their number 1 tight end.
Oh, okay. All right. So Fant must.
I think Fant is gone.
Fant
is gone.
Yeah, we've got some Seattle fans in the comments too here. So
hey, we got
12 y'all.
We know who's coming back this week too. We get it. I know you got a bunch of guys coming back on defense. Trust me, we are very much aware. But no, I think it's a good point. You did say something though, Anthony. I kind of disagree with the he's still Sam Darnold deep down. I think we now are looking at what Sam Darnold could have been had he not been drafted by the Jets. Realistically,
what the hell's in the water in
every
New York?
Quarterback.
What's up with New York? Is that the whole state of New York, New Jersey? Because Daniel Jones leaves, and now he looks like the second coming of Peyton Manning. I don't get it. Maybe Sam is nice like that.
In all honesty, I've been a big believer in, and it's not like the evidence doesn't prove it. It's not like I'm necessarily going out on a limb here, but situation really dictates the success of a young quarterback, specifically a young quarterback, because, Joe Flacco clearly can get thrown into any situation, throw the ball 45 times and teams can still win. At this point, Joe Flacco's just give me the playbook. He acts like he's ChatGPT, scans the damn thing, figures it out and throws the ball 45 times. But for younger quarterbacks like a Daniel Jones, like a Sam Darnold went all around the league, right? Went to Carolina. You're not going to get better in Carolina. I mean, Baker Mayfield showed us that too. They both went kind of on a similar path. Carolina doesn't make anybody better at quarterback, but then Sam Darnold went to San Francisco and learned from Kyle Shanahan, and he's credited Kyle Shanahan as somebody that really taught him how to become a better quarterback. I think that was the pivotal moment in Sam Darnold's career where he said, you know what? I'm going to a team, and he probably wasn't going to get a starting job anywhere anyway, but he went to a place where he could learn and get better. We saw what he did in Minnesota. I get the playoff game at the end, and his time at the end of Minnesota didn't end well. Again, I'm not putting Sam Darnold as top 5, even maybe a top 10 quarterback in the NFL, but what I do think is he's much more consistent. The ceiling is higher, and I think the floor is also higher with him, where when you watch Sam Darnold throw the football, there's a level of confidence and an understanding to the type of quarterback that he is now, and he reads defenses a lot better than he has before. But Anthony, you did also mention Jaxon Smith-Njigba, that helps to have somebody that you can just say, F it, he's down somewhere and throw him the football. And if they establish the run early, you know that you've got that deep threat at any point with a Washington secondary that can look around and go, no, you're supposed to have him. No, you're supposed to have him. And everybody's missing tackles and missing assignments, and then this game gets out of hand.
Yeah, I guess when you do have a solid running game, that tends to settle some things down. Cliff, pay attention. Cliff, run the rock. Cliff, give the ball to every running back you have. Okay, just run the ball.
Chris Rodriguez, let's go.
I don't know why Chris Rodriguez don't get no carries, man. I don't know
No,
why. I don't know why they hating on. I didn't know we had some Seattle folks in the chat, man. I had changed my sign just for this episode. November 27, 2011. That's all I know.
Jay Malfair also brings up a good point here. Sam Darnold credits Brock Purdy for showing him how to fix his footwork, speed up and learn. So yeah, like sometimes it's just for quarterbacks. It's about, David, the situation that they're in, where it's you get to a better organization. The leadership's better. The front office is better. The coaching, it's just better. And young quarterbacks find these second or third opportunities. Baker Mayfield's another great example. But I think Sam Darnold, listen, I'm not ever going to throw Sam Darnold in as a top 5 or maybe even top 10 quarterback at this point in his career. But I do think he is now a quarterback that is a legit threat that you're not going to look at and go, well, he's going to screw it up at some point. That's absolutely not a guarantee with Darnold anymore.
I had my fingers crossed. Let me have my fingers crossed.
That's fair. You can do that.
Come on, Sam. No, I'll say this: being underneath Kyle and watching him, operate with the quarterbacks, he's very maniacal about how he wants the thing done, and he makes you play with some anticipation and throw the ball before the window's even there. That's one thing that makes Brock Purdy great, is that he's able to throw the ball before seeing the route come open, and Sam's starting to do that, and when Njigba running wide open. So yeah, he's improved his play. I just don't want him to go ball out crazy on Sunday night. You know what I mean? Just temper it down for us, please.
I mean, I think really what it boils down to, not to get too deep into the Sam Darnold conversation, but I think what it really boils down to is confidence and trust, right? And I think, again, without getting too deap into like the media studies of it, but especially with this generation of players, like playing in New York is horrendous, right? It's a horrendous environment to try to go be a rookie quarterback, especially because you have the pressure of the entire world on your shoulders, right? But like you look at even like look at Washington. I mean, let's be honest. Like if we're being completely honest, Jayden Daniels played arguably his worst game as a pro against the Chicago Bears in that loss, and it's not just that one fumble at the end of the game, right? But And we all kind of tongue in cheek because he also threw 3 touchdowns. Like he was very, very effective in that game as well. But like just from a holistic, mentality, making mistakes, things like that type of way, that was probably the worst game we've seen him play as a decision maker. But guess what didn't happen? Like he wasn't on the back page of the Washington Post, like Tiger Cubbed and like just like massive like negativity and let me just like slam you from the top of the Empire State Building, like. You know what I mean? Like, did we talk about the game as a Washington beat? Absolutely. Did we admit that Jayden made some mistakes? Absolutely. But in New York, man, like, I mean, if Jackson Dart jaywalks today, it'll be like, what are they teaching him in the South? Like, what are you're a rebel in New York City. Like, it's insanity. And truthfully, it's even hard to put it on the coach, right? Because like Anthony, like I think, coaches, like part of their job is to help protect the players from the public, from the media. In some ways, you can't like tell the media what to write and what not to write, but like at least in helping them understand the circumstances. And I think if they were truthful, they'd be like, look, that doesn't matter. Like that headline doesn't impact what we're doing in this building, but to these younger guys, it does impact them. And if you're Sam Darnold, I mean, Sam Darnold's on the sideline, he gets caught on an NFL Films mic saying, I'm seeing ghosts. A phrase that has been said by generations of quarterbacks before him, right? But what happened to that moment? Sam Darnold is seeing ghosts. Sam Darnold don't know what he's seeing. His eyes are terrible. If he says that in Tampa, Florida, the media members are like, that's kind of a funny comment. Never heard that before. And it's over, right? But because he's a Jet, because he's in New York, it's everywhere. And there's like reality show people are turning into a meme. Artists are putting it, like there's probably a rapper out there who's like, he's scared, he's seeing ghosts, right? Like, it's a totally different environment, and you lose faith. You lose trust in your environment. You lose trust in what you're doing, and it takes getting out of that environment, getting away from all that to really kind of regain it. So I think a lot of it, the footwork obviously important. The scheme is obviously important. Don't ever want to take away from that. But I think Sam is in a position now where he doesn't have to worry about, like, if I throw this interception, is the Seattle media going to figuratively throw me off of Mount, Fuji? I don't even know what the mountain name is out there. I apologize.
I think it's Rainier, Mount Rainier.
Mount Rainier, yeah. Mount Fuji's like Japan or something. You know what I mean? Like, are they going to throw me off the mountain figuratively, right? I think that's a big part of it. Like, is a Seahawk fan going to come through Commander Squad show and be like, Sam Darnold's the worst thing since bad fish? Like, I don't think you have to worry about those kinds of things. And I think it does matter. It absolutely matters. Baker Mayfield as a guy that came up, right? He's had a lot of candid conversations about losing faith in Cleveland and about, going to Carolina and understanding like this was a rental. This was never a long-term thing. And then when he went to the Rams, like it was also not a long-term thing, but it was not a long-term thing as in a fun way, right? Like McVay brought him in and was like, hey, dude, look, we're not going to the postseason. You're not under contract next year. Let's just go ball and cause some chaos. Let's just go have fun. Let's plant some flags. And they did it, and it brought him back to the game of football. Why? Because he can now trust what's happening. And everybody in LA also understood the score. Baker's not coming here to save the Rams. Baker's coming here to give us a whole lot of entertaining things to write about for the rest of the season. And he did it. Then he comes to Tampa, and now he can trust what is around him. He can trust the media corps. Like I saw Baker after the divisional loss to the Detroit Lions. It was the last game I covered as a member of the Buccaneers beat. And he was just a very comfortable guy. Obviously, he was mad because they lost, but he was a very comfortable guy, just comfortable in his skin. I think trust and confidence absolutely is playing a part of what's going on with Sam Darnold. I'm happy for him. I just hope that the trust in his pass protection and the confidence in the game goes away on Sunday night for a little bit. But yeah, other than that, I know that's a different topic, but that's how my brain works. Sorry.
Dude, first off, it's the quarterback that the Commanders see on Sunday. And I think it's a great point when you talk about the New York media, because I've never worked in the New York or Boston market, but I have worked with people that are from both Boston and New York in the media. They're perpetually angry no matter what. Like, it doesn't matter who's winning. They are going to find a reason why they are upset. It's like Sam Darnold could have thrown 4 touchdowns and no interceptions, and they'd be like, well, he had 5 incompletions. And did you see that one? It's like, dude, they're just angrier at everything up in New York. So you think people here are upset with Jayden Daniels or something that, happened against Kansas City and the Commanders? Like, it's 10 times. New York is the hardest market to win, to succeed, everything. And that's why the Jets and the Giants have had such a lack of success over the years, because it takes a certain player, especially a quarterback, to really actually be able to handle that and to really be a part of that and to really succeed in that. And it's
look, if the Jets lose their next game, you know what the headline is going to be in New York? Aaron Glenn hasn't won a football game since October. That was last month. Like, that's going to be the headline. Like, that's going to be the headline in New York. That's what it's like coaching and playing in New York City.
Oh, man.
Or New Jersey, I should say, actually. That's another thing.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Ugh, change the turf, change everything over there. But that's a whole – come back to D.C. I thought D.C. media was crazy. Apparently, it's way different up in New York, so I'm glad I ain't up there.
It definitely is. All right, we'll wrap it up next with what we think happens Sunday night against Seattle. It's Commander Squad.
I'm Cody Rourke from Locked On Broncos, and this episode is brought to you by Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. This is Peloton's most advanced equipment yet, giving you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or you're cross-training with your favorite instructors like Alex Toussaint. It's training reimagined to make your workout more personal. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with features that help you plan, stay motivated, and hit peak performance. You can let yourself run, lift, flex, and go, while Peloton handles all the rest. Plus, Peloton IQ provides real-time strength coaching, tracking your progress and suggesting weights that challenge you so you can get stronger. Plus, the new movement tracking camera, it counts your reps and corrects your form in real time, making sure every rep is safer and smarter. So let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
All right, guys. So for those that dabble, the Commanders are 3.5-point dogs at home Sunday night against Seattle. That totals at 46.5. We know that this, obviously, as we've looked at the quarterbacks. We know there's a lot of injury questions that are certainly up in the air on the Washington side of things. Seattle's getting healthier. At this point, it looks like they're going to have some names back, especially defensively for them. The run game, they've got the guys that can certainly run the football. They commit to the run. We know that they can open up the pass. Jaxon Smith-Njigba, Sam Darnold. We've gotten into all of that now. I'll start with you, Anthony. How does this game go, given all that we know at this point as we do this show live? What does this game look like when we are doing a post-game show Sunday night?
ideally a little victory for the burgundy and gold folks, but I think it's going to be a physical matchup. I think it's really one that, McDonald's comes from up there in Baltimore, so he understands that Beltway rivalry and kind of what it gets like with Washington. So I expect a physical matchup. The defensive line, they're going to try to do their thing. Javon Kinlaw is going to make his point known, but there are going to be some plays made by Seattle. They got some playmakers over there. DeMarcus Lawrence is going to want to put on a good performance for DQ. He wants to show out for his old coach, especially. He was like, I don't want to hop on the bandwagon. I'm going to choose Seattle instead. So I don't know, maybe there's a little something to get on there, but ultimately it's going to be a tough battle. I want to see maybe Matt Gay or whoever the hell's kicking for Washington now put the ball through the pipes at the end of this thing and finish with just enough points, one more point than Seattle. That's how I'm seeing it play out.
Yeah, I think it's a lot like scouting sometimes, right? Like the coach, like you get in the meeting room and you got to tell the guys, like, here's what's going to work, right? Like when you scout a player, you don't worry about what he can't do. You worry about what he can do. So as a coach, you kind of want to get in the meeting rooms, like, here's what we can do against Seattle Seahawks. And here's how I can quantify what we can do. I think in this case, you have to be a little bit honest and say, here's where we stepped on our own, whatever, against Kansas City Chiefs. And you go back to the fumble. You go back to the two
what
penalties.
Did they step on? Tell us
more.
They
stepped on. I can't think of a substitute word, so I'm not going to say it. There's the missed fumble. There's the two penalties, and those aren't the only situations. But they're on offense. There's the missed fourth down attempts, things like that. And I think you have to be honest in the sense that it comes across as a little bit rah-rah, right? It comes across as a little bit just coach messagey, I think. But you tell this team, listen, you're seven plays from keeping the Kansas City Chiefs offense under 20 points and scoring 24. You're 7 plays from that reality happening. And those 7 plays did not happen the way they happened because of anything the Kansas City Chiefs did. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. It sucks in hindsight, but that's a good thing. And that's how you get the players to continue buying in. I cheated a little bit. I looked over at the comments. I saw LC come through and talk about the morale of the team. Morale is 3 things. Morale is confidence, it's energy, and it's spirit. And we talk about spirit. A lot of people think spirit and energy are the same thing. Spirit. I'm not talking about high school pep rallies. I'm talking about spirit. The spirit is how to steal a DQ. Yeah, to steal a DQ phrase is how you get down. I will tell you right now, this team knows how they want to get down. They know how Washington Commanders football team is supposed to play. The confidence in their ability to do it is not shaken. I can tell you that from live in-person interactions with these guys immediately after the game and even after. Their confidence is not shaken. What they're losing is a little bit of that excitement. They're losing a little bit of that encouragement. That's the part of the morale equation that is shaken. Yes, that part is shaken. However, that is something that is controlled by you. Jacob Martin, you know what I mean? He was one of the team captains against Kansas City Chiefs, man. Pre-game, like just warming up, that dude had so much juice. And if you're a fan that loves to watch film, and if you're a fan that loves to get in the nitty-gritty like I am, and you're a nerd, all these things, go watch these last 2 games and go watch Jacob Martin, because that dude has been balling out. Like, that dude has been stepping up in a major way. It's getting lost in these defeats, but he has been stepping up. He has been an emotional leader these last couple of weeks. Like, I'm kind of looking at him, like, go out there and continue to be that guy. Go out there and continue to be this new energy. Get this energy up. Get number 5 on the field. And if you can't get number 5 on the field, man, like Debo, bro, like, you got to come out there with the dog mentality. You got to come out there and be that motivating factor, because the team needs it. You know what I mean? But if you can do that against Kansas City Chiefs offense, I say all that to say this. You need 24 points. If you're Joe Witt Jr., you got to tell Cliff, we need 24 points. And if you get me 24 points, and if Quan, Johnny, Marshawn, everybody, not just the guys who made the mistakes, but everybody else, understand, guys, 60 minutes. Don't let frustration get the better of you. Don't let greed get the better of you. Don't play the should game. You should be able to throw Patrick Mahomes on his backside and not get thrown a flag for it. Got it. That's not reality. Don't play the should game. Play the what is game. Stay within what we're doing. And even with all those other mistakes that we're not even pointing out here, you win that game. You do that against the Seattle Seahawks, you're going to keep them under 24, and you're going to win that game. But it's going to take 60 minutes, and it's going to take cleaning up those things and not letting – because that's where the morale went away. Those 2 penalties, specifically to LC's point, that to me was the defensive morale zapped, gone. And that's what cost them the game.
I got to add this in because we beat the Commanders up for how we performed this season. We had 12 wins last year. We drew a 12-win schedule. I'm not sure what Seattle had last year, but their wins have been against Pittsburgh, Jacksonville, and then other teams have had 1 win, 2 win, and 3 wins on the season. So they're winning the game they're supposed to win. The teams that Seattle has lost against, Tampa Bay and San Francisco. So take that for what it's worth. You're not necessarily going up against just a team that's just whooping everybody because they haven't drawn everybody. I mean, the Pittsburgh one was close. They had 4 turnovers against Houston, and they beat Jacksonville as well. So you're going up against a good team, but it lets me know that, hey, maybe they haven't taken that full leap. Maybe, you've been through more as a squad from last year and this year that Washington should come into this thing confidently and say, hey, shoot, man. Hey, we've beat some of these really good teams. We're having a rough go right now, but I think they can, lean on that confidence and look at the schedule and say, hey, this is the team that they really beat. They haven't beaten any perennial, people at the top of the playoffs.
Yeah, Seattle was second in the West last year, just like Washington. So they both drew second place schedules, essentially. And again, the schedules aren't even. And I care very little about strength of schedule coming into a season. It means literally nothing because it's all based on last year or win projections, and none of that actually matters. Obviously, we still wait on the health of certain players. If you have Jayden Daniels, you clearly have a shot in this game. I think they can keep this within a field goal. I think you brought up a good point, Anthony, is like, you need to actually have a kicker that can go out there and kick field goals for you this week, whether it's Matt Gay or anybody else. I mean, the going for it on 4th down and then not converting, and then the one that Marcus Mariota just had to kind of toss it up. Like, you're not helping yourself if you're not finishing drives, especially when you're getting the extra possessions that they had early with the 2 early interceptions on Patrick Mahomes that led to literally nothing. I mean, that's part of the problem is if you're going to generate extra possessions, you've got to finish them, at least come away with 3 points. So this game feels like it's going to be a clock-controlled game early. I think Seattle's really going to try to establish the run. I'd love to see the Commanders do the same thing. You've got some guys. You talk about all these talented running backs you have in your backfield. Use them. Take advantage of that early. Keep the defense off of the field as much as you can. If you have Jayden Daniels, he's going to make everybody around him better. As long as he's healthy, you give this team a chance. But if there is no Terry McLaurin, you're right. More Debo. You're going to more Luke McCaffrey. Please give Luke McCaffrey targets. He does so much in the return game. Let's give him more opportunities as a wide receiver. We see it when he gets the chance. He makes these great plays. He makes these great catches. He's a great return guy. Just get creative ways. Give the ball to Luke McCaffrey and let him just run some end arounds. I don't know, anything, just little bubble screens, something to get the ball in his hands and let him make plays. That's going to be the difference maker. These Sunday night games, we know they can be weird. One little bounce, one little play, one little thing can be totally different and change the entire trajectory of this game. But I think that's going to be the difference here. We obviously wait on Jayden Daniels, Terry McLaurin, and some of these statuses. All 3 of us will be back Sunday night after Commanders and Seahawks. And, of course, David, the rest of the week, the Locked On Commanders podcast as well. Make sure you subscribe to that. Subscribe to the channel. Give us all a follow on all of the socials. We will talk to you all together Sunday after Commanders Seahawks.